You think a dead tree coming back to life is a sign of good fortune. You think bugs crawling across leaves are just a natural phenomenon. When the ancient willow in the temple of Chang'e, dead for 20 years, suddenly sprouted new shoots, and when the words carved out by insects on its leaves spelled a message, it almost overturned the entire Han dynasty. Let's step into the shoes of an ordinary citizen of Chang'e during the Western Han, and see how this not-so-simple dead willow wove a web that changed countless fates. The old willow in the Chang'e temple, dead for 20 years, suddenly sprouted branches and leaves. Among the fresh green leaves, a message appeared, gnawed out by insects. Gongsun Bingyi is crowned. Convinced this was a divine prophecy, you submitted a memorial to persuade the emperor to abdicate, but you were accused of spreading heretical lies. As you were marched to the execution ground, the new emperor, Liu Bingyi, passed by in his carriage. In that instant, you recognized him. He was the boy you had saved on the banks of the Wei River 10 years ago, barely clinging to life. The execution overseer sneered, "The emperor has ascended the throne, and what better blood to consecrate it than that of this heaven-sent prophet?" The wind in Chang'e carried with it old dust and a faint, rotting scent, hitting your face like a slap. You squinted hard, forcing your gaze through the haze of sand to fix on a barren patch of earth by the temple where only a rotting stump, long buried and forgotten, should have remained. But now, atop that gnarled black root, clusters of dazzlingly fresh green buds were pushing their way out. The new shoots, frail yet stubborn, trembled lightly in the dry wind. Their leaves were delicate and almost translucent, glowing with the fragile radiance of new life. That flash of green was like a silent thunderbolt, splitting open the dull, suffocating sky over Chang'e and cracking open some long-sealed corner of your heart. Your throat tightened, your mouth went dry, your heart pounded against your ribs like a drum, as if it would shatter your chest. You staggered forward, unable to control your steps, eyes devouring that miraculous sight. People began gathering around. Low, disbelieving gasps rippled through the crowd like waves. You pushed past the dazed onlookers, inching closer to the revived willow. Close enough to see the tiny hairs on the tender leaves. Close enough to catch that strange, earthy, almost refreshing scent of surging life. You reached out with trembling fingers and brushed the leaf nearest to the root. The leaf's edge was jagged, unnaturally chewed. Your heart sank like a stone, your breath stopped, and your gaze burned along the veins of the leaf until your pupils shrank to pinpoints. In the middle of that leaf, several small, greenish insects were slowly crawling and gnawing. The paths they traced left sharp, visible marks on the supple surface. These marks weren't random, they twisted and combined to form 5 horrifying characters, Gong Sun Bing Yi crowned. Each crooked stroke seemed to carry an electric shock, stabbing into your eyes and straight into your brain. A chill shot up your spine, exploding across your scalp. You jerked your head up, scanning the faces around you, some horrified, some blank, some filled with an odd reverence. This was heaven's will. It couldn't be man-made. A scorching flood of conviction crashed through every barrier of reason in your mind. A voice inside you roared, "This tree's rebirth, these bug-carved words, they are heaven's prophecy, a proclamation of a coming upheaval, a divine omen, heaven's will." An old man with white hair trembled, pointing at the leaf, his voice hoarse with fear. "Gongsun Binji crowned. Who does it mean?" Another voice quavered in terror. "The temple reveals its spirit. The dead willow lives again. Is this the end of an era?" The crowd grew restless, whispers swelling into a nervous hum that buzzed in your ears. You stood frozen, stiff, as the weathered stone idol in the temple. Those 5 bug-carved characters burned on your retinas like red-hot iron, searing you again and again. A tree's rebirth is a sign of fortune, but words carved by insects are a warning. Together, they pointed to one suffocatingly clear conclusion: the Han dynasty was doomed, and heaven's mandate had already shifted. A sense of mission, fierce and overwhelming, surged in your chest, mingled with awe for heaven's decree and a desperate need to reveal the truth. You had to submit a memorial. The Emperor must know. Only by following heaven's will and yielding the throne to a worthy man could he avoid catastrophe. Once this thought ignited, it spread like wildfire, impossible to contain. The shadow of Chang'an's towering palaces loomed coldly over you. Every step up the vermilion steps of Weiyang Palace felt like treading on ice, the chill cutting to your bones. Clutching the memorial you'd written with blood and tears, your fingers whitened from the pressure, as if you were holding your own beating heart instead of bamboo slips. The bamboo slips were unbearably heavy, engraved with the strange omen of the dead willow's rebirth and the insect-carved prophecy. Gongsun Binji crowned, followed by your bleeding conclusion. The Han Emperor must yield the empire, seek out the virtuous, and pass on the throne. The palace guards, clad in cold iron armor, showed nothing but flat, emotionless eyes. When they took the memorial from your hands, their movements were rough and indifferent. The heavy palace gates closed in front of you with a low, sighing boom, cutting off the world inside from the one outside. You stood alone under the towering walls, staring up at the shadow that blocked out the sky, suffocating you. A cold, ominous dread slithered around your neck like a snake. The waiting days dragged like a dull blade scraping your flesh. The sky over Chang'an was gray and oppressive, making it hard to breathe. Until that evening, when the setting sun painted the palace walls in blood-red light. A sudden, pounding rush of footsteps shattered the quiet streets like war drums on stone. The sound drew closer, dripping with killing intent, until it stopped right outside your rented courtyard. Bang! The thin gate slammed open, shards of wood flying. A dozen Imperial guards stormed in like wolves, their iron armor glinting darkly in the dim light. The leading officer's face was hard, as forged steel, his hawk-like eyes cutting straight to you. He raised a bronze token high, the beast pattern on it, writhing as if alive in the blood-red sunset. By Imperial decree, arrest Sui Hong, the traitor spreading heretical lies and plotting rebellion. His voice was icy and unyielding, every word stabbing into your eardrums like a poisoned spike. Spreading lies, plotting treason, the words struck you like a bolt of lightning, freezing your blood. You repeated them in disbelief, your body trembling uncontrollably. A crushing sense of absurdity and icy fear seized you. You wanted to argue, to cry out, "It's heaven's will! A blessing! A warning!" But your throat felt strangled by an invisible hand, and only a hoarse rasp escaped your lips. "Seize him," the officer barked, leaving no room for explanation. Cold iron chains bit into your wrists and ankles, tightening in an instant, the rough metal rings cutting deep into your flesh. A powerful shove slammed into your back, you grunted, stumbling forward and crashing onto the icy stone ground, choking on the dust that filled your nose and mouth. You tried to lift your head, to see the faces of those who held your fate in their hands, but your vision was forced down brutally. You were dragged forward like a lifeless sack of goods, the coarse stones scraping your face and body, leaving searing pain in their wake. Behind you, Your wife's heart-wrenching cries and your young child's terrified screams stabbed at your heart like red-hot knives, over and over. Your eyes burned with fury and grief, but you were powerless. You bit down hard on your lip until you tasted the heavy tang of blood. In the imperial prison of the Court of Judicial Review, the darkness was so thick it felt like black ink enveloping you. The air reeked of years of blood, mold, and a faint metallic stench, the scent of dried blood. Damp, bone-piercing cold seeped from the straw mat beneath you and from the walls, making every breath a shiver. Clang! The heavy iron gate screeched open, the sound grating like knives on your ears. A figure was shoved inside, crashing onto the straw beside you with a muffled groan of pain. By the flickering, dim lamplight in the corridor, you barely saw that it was a young man in tattered clothes, his face marked with fresh whip scars, his eyes cloudy and hopeless. You curled up in the corner. The zeal and almost martyr-like fervor that the willow's prophecy once gave you had long been extinguished in this endless darkness and cold, leaving nothing but bone-deep exhaustion and a chilling emptiness. Was it worth it to destroy yourself and doom your family over some vague, illusory sign from heaven? The thought gnawed at you like a poisonous snake. "Hey, newcomer!" A raspy, aged voice called from the next cell, laced with a mocking numbness. "What did you do? Dared to talk about heaven's will?" You stayed silent, burying your face deeper into your frozen knees. The old man didn't care about your silence, muttering to himself, his words carrying eerily clear through the dead stillness of the prison. "Gongsun Bing Yi crowned." Ah, such boldness. Do you even know whose wrath you've provoked with those words? Bing Yi, Emperor Zhao. He broke into a violent cough, wheezing. Emperor Zhao is frail. Not long for this world, and the one above. He pointed vaguely upward, meaning the powerful Grand General Huo Guang. He's long been searching among the imperial clan for the lost descendant, Liu Benji, to make him the next emperor and secure his own power. Your prophecy? It's heaven's will, sure, but it's also the move in someone's carefully laid game. You're just the sacrificial pawn sent to legitimize the new emperor. Every word struck your temples like a red-hot iron spike. You jerked your head up, your dull eyes snapping wide in the dark, fixing on the vague shadow in the next cell. A chill, sharper than the coldest air in this dungeon, shot up your spine, freezing every drop of blood in your body. The willow's rebirth, the prophecy carved by bugs, Gongsun Bing Yi crowned. It wasn't heaven's will at all, but a meticulously crafted scheme. The divine mandate you'd staked your life and family upon was nothing but a pawn in a minister's hand. A volcanic wave of absurdity and rage at being toyed with, boiled in your chest, searing your insides. Your whole body trembled violently, your teeth chattering not from the cold, but from a crushing despair and fury that shattered you to your core. A guttural, beast-like cry tore from your throat as your fingers clawed into the frozen straw mat. Your nails split, blood seeping out, but you felt no pain. The heart that once burned hot with heaven's will was drained of all warmth, leaving only a cold, hollow shell riddled with cracks. The execution ground was set by the banks of the Wei River west of Chang'an. The sky hung heavy and gray, like a slab of lead pressing down on the earth. Not a breath of wind stirred. The air was suffocating, thick with the smell of soil and a faint, nauseating tang of blood. Your hands were bound behind you, coarse hemp rope biting deep into your already raw and torn wrists. Every movement sent waves of stabbing pain through you. The heavy wooden prisoner cart jolted and rattled over the uneven dirt road, each bump slamming your battered body against the cold wooden bars. On both sides, A sea of people loomed, countless eyes staring at you, curious, indifferent, fearful, excited, a tangled web of emotions binding you in place. Shouts, curses, sighs, and the muffled sobs of children buried in their mother's arms blended with the creak of wheels on earth, surging and receding like tides, buzzing in your ears yet failing to truly reach your mind. Your head drooped, your gaze unfocused, falling on the dried willow slats at the bottom of the cart. Willow again. Was this fate's cruel joke? It was that cursed tree that had pushed you to this point of no return. You tried to smirk, but tasted only the bitter tang of dried blood on your lips. "Stop!" A sharp shout rang out. The cart lurched to a halt, the sudden force throwing you forward, your forehead smashing into the wooden bars. A hot gush of blood ran down your brow, blurring your vision. Through the haze of red, you barely made out the face of the execution overseer, the rights censor of the Court of Judicial Review, expressionless, seated high on a temporary platform. His cold gaze swept over the execution ground as if surveying a pile of merchandise. Suddenly, a deep, commanding horn sounded in the distance, cutting through the oppressive noise of the crowd. It was followed by the heavy, synchronized drumbeat of footsteps, each strike shaking the earth beneath you. The crowd erupted into chaos, rippling like water struck by stones. The new emperor! It's the new emperor's procession! Heavens! It's His Majesty's carriage! Look, the dragon banner. The prisoner cart was yanked roughly to the roadside, forcing you to lift your head. Your vision, blurred by blood and sweat, strained as you forced your eyes open. A grand and solemn procession approached at a slow, deliberate pace. At the front were towering black dragon flags and ornate banners, embroidered with the sun, moon, and stars, whipping in the heavy air with an imposing, unshakable authority. The Yulin guards, clad in bright armor and wielding halberds, marched in sharp rhythm, their hawk-like eyes sweeping the crowd as a chilling aura of killing intent spread out. At the center of the procession was a massive golden chariot drawn by 4 pure black stallions. A bright yellow canopy, symbolizing imperial power, draped over its top, the tassels swaying gently with the turning wheels. Dragons and swirling clouds were carved into the carriage's body, which gleamed with a subdued yet regal light even under the gloomy sky. As the chariot passed the prisoner cart, its speed seemed to slow slightly. A faint breeze stirred, lifting a corner of the heavy yellow curtain. In that fleeting moment, your gaze was struck as if by lightning, fixed on the young figure inside. The black imperial robe with 12 embroidered emblems, symbolizing supreme power, accentuated his tall, upright form. His face, half turned, looked calmly through the gap in the curtain toward the execution ground. That face! The sharp jawline, the straight nose, and most of all those eyes, in their depths was a calm and weariness, a quiet gravity that seemed out of place with this grand scene of ascension. A floodgate of memories burst open. 10 years ago, on the banks of the Wei River, that freezing rainy night. The murky waters roared as a thin, frail figure huddled in the reeds on the muddy shore, soaked to the bone, burning with fever, his breath as weak as a flickering candle. That young face, twisted with pain and caked in mud yet stubbornly defiant, now overlapped perfectly with the face before you, a face both youthful and unfathomable beneath imperial robes. It's you? The hoarse, broken cry tore from your throat like the wail of a dying beast. Your whole body shook as you lunged forward, your forehead slamming against the wooden bars of the cart with a heavy thud. It's you, the boy you had dragged back from the brink of death by the Wei River. The boy you had covered with your own coat, fed with scalding ginger broth, and carried for miles through muddy roads to a clinic. The boy with those wary, frightened eyes who had only mumbled his name as Binger. Lu Binji, Lu Binji. So the prophecy. Gong Sun Binji crowned, the exalted, heaven-mandated new emperor, was actually the dying Binger you once saved. The sheer absurdity of it all crashed over you like a tidal wave, drowning you in an instant. The entire world you had built around destiny, prophecy, and sacrifice shattered to dust. You had spent your fortune to save his life, begged for medicine, and carried him from the jaws of death, and now he sat high in the chariot of ultimate power, calmly watching you walk toward the executioner's blade, all in the name of his heaven's mandate? Everything you had done for him had become the ironclad proof nailing you to the charge of spreading lies. What a cruel joke. What a laughable, heart-wrenching irony. A broken, off-pitch sob wheezed from your throat like a dying bellows. Scalding tears, mixed with blood from your brow, streamed down your face, washing away the dried mud and humiliation, leaving burning tracks. You clutched the wooden bars of the cart so hard your knuckles turned bone white. Your body trembled violently, as if it might rip apart under the weight of despair and rage. Inside the golden chariot, the young emperor seemed to notice the disturbance. His gaze, through the gap in the lifted curtain, calmly fell upon you, upon your face, twisted by shock, grief, and fury. In those deep eyes flickered something fleeting and hard to read. Was it confusion, surprise, or a faint ripple of emotion, quickly and forcefully suppressed? Your bloodshot eyes met his for a heartbeat, and then the curtain was drawn down, slowly and deliberately, by a pale, slender hand belonging to the Emperor. The barrier fell, shutting out not just the outside world, but also the last, foolish shred of hope in your heart. The Imperial carriage did not stop for a moment. It rolled on along the planned route, escorted by the Yulin guards, heading toward Weiyang Palace, the heart of Imperial power. The heavy wheels crushed the yellow earth, leaving deep ruts behind, grinding away the last of your illusions of heavenly justice. The time has come. Bring the prisoner. The overseer's cold, merciless voice cracked like a death knell across the silent execution ground, snapping you back from your daze to the brutal present. Two burly executioners, their faces blank, opened the cart's wooden gate, their rough hands clamped onto your numb arms like iron tongs, dragging you effortlessly toward the center of the execution platform. Your legs felt as heavy as lead, yet as hollow as if stripped of bones. Unable to support you, you let yourself be dragged, leaving two pitiful tracks on the dusty ground. The cold yellow earth, mixed with dark stains of old blood from those who came before you, bit into your knees as you were forced to kneel in the place of execution. Before your eyes were the executioner's worn leather boots, spattered with dark red stains of unknown origin. A sharp stench of rust and sweat invaded your nostrils. On the platform above, the right censor of the Court of Judicial Review stared down at you with a rigid, impassive face, his eyes devoid of any emotion, filled only with the detachment of a man doing his duty. He cleared his throat and began speaking in a flat, formulaic tone, as though reciting a verdict. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly to every corner of the execution ground. The prisoner Sui Hong, for spreading false omens, faking heaven's will, and deceiving the masses, plotting to overthrow the state. The evidence is irrefutable, and the crime is unpardonable. By law, he is to be executed as a warning to all. He paused, his gaze sweeping the silent crowd before settling back on you. The corner of his mouth lifted ever so slightly, forming a cold, merciless arc. His voice dropped, chillingly clear as it cut through your bones. Moreover, with the new Emperor's ascension and the dawn of a new era, we require the blood of heaven's chosen prophets like you to consecrate the banner and establish authority. Your blood shall stain the road of the new dynasty and count as your final merit. Every word cut into your heart like a dull knife dipped in salt, sawing back and forth. A blood sacrifice? A show of power? They would use your blood as a so-called prophet to pave the way for Liu Binji, the boy you once saved, to ascend his new throne. They would use the destruction of your family to stain the steps leading to his dragon seat red. What heavenly mandate? This was nothing but a naked slaughter for power. The celestial signs you bet your life on, the truth you fought for. Losing everything, your family, your home were nothing but scraps, easily smeared and discarded in the face of real power. A rag, used only to dress up the new emperor's rise with a halo of heaven's will, and then smeared with blood to paint his rule as legitimate. Ha 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 ha! The extremes of rage and despair finally erupted into a hoarse, manic laugh, ripping out from deep within your chest. The sound was as sharp and mournful as a night owl crying blood, echoing across the silent execution ground, full of bitter irony and sorrow. You snapped your head up, bloodshot eyes glaring at the cold, expressionless face on the platform. Your gaze seemed to pierce through him, locking on to that golden chariot now vanished into the depths of the palace. Blood from your brow mingled with tears, streaking your face like a ghost clawed up from hell. Heaven's will. Ha ha ha! What a heaven's will! What a blood sacrifice! You howled with every shred of strength you had, your voice cracking apart. Liu Binji, you owe me your life. Will you repay it with the whole world? That final cry, like a blood-soaked curse, hurled all your life's fire at the dark, heavy sky. The execution overseer's brows furrowed, his eyes flashing with irritation and disgust, as if at the noisy death throes of an ant. Without hesitation, he grabbed a fire-red execution token from the bamboo tube before him, the lacquered wood glowing like a streak of burning blood. Execute! Before the word order even left his lips, the crimson token symbol of death had already been hurled down. Ooh! The heavy whoosh of air roared from behind. It was the terrifying sound of a massive ring-handled blade swinging with full force, slicing the air. The cold killing intent pierced the skin on the back of your neck like an icy spike. In that moment, time stretched and froze, the colors of the world draining away, leaving nothing but suffocating shades of gray. All sounds vanished, the wind, the stifled breaths of the crowd, the faint noise of the distant city replaced by a strange, overwhelming hum, as if your soul were already tearing free of your body. In the final instant, before your consciousness sank into the endless dark, your fading gaze locked, as if by fate, onto the cracks between the wooden planks beneath you. There, right where your knees pressed against the dirt, stained with filth and dark red blood, something impossible was happening, a faint, almost invisible hint of green. A tiny sprout of willow, even more fragile, tender, yet fiercely unyielding than the shoots you'd once seen on the temple's dead tree. It was forcing its way up through the cracks of this blood-soaked place of death, quietly, stubbornly. The shriek of the execution blade tearing through the air merged with the eternal whisper of the wind on the banks of the Wei River.